This is a video for the Luke 140 Syndicate. Well everyone, we took Luke to the Maryland 5-star last weekend, and sadly it didn't quite have the finish that I was hoping for. It was a huge contest, and I felt like Luke was very well prepared for it. We had him very fit and in great shape. He'd done a number of good lead-up events, and I really felt like we had him primed for the 5-star. It was a very challenging course. There were 25 horses that entered the class, and only 12 made it to the show jumping. So there was nearly half the field didn't quite finish the show. Our weekend started well. We had a good dressage. It wasn't quite as good as the dressage at Kentucky 5-star, but not far off it. We were the second horse to perform on Thursday afternoon, and it was quite a spooky arena. If you look behind Luke there's this big jumbotron that flashes, and it was quite a windy day. It's hard to tell from the screen there, but the wind was blowing, and there was a lot of sort of plastic flapping around in the stands, so it was quite hard to keep Luke settled. Saying that, I felt like he did a really good test. We had a couple of mistakes. So the bulk of the dressage test we were getting 7.5s, 8s, but then there was a moment or two where we got distracted, and it didn't. We sort of ended up on a 5, which really sort of devastated our score a bit. We finished on a 31. There was 2 days of dressage in the 5-star, and we were actually the overnight leaders. So we, it was a pretty good performance. To break under the mark of 30, it really has to be a perfect test. But all in all, Luke performed very well. He was a little bit spooky coming out of the first center line, and then I felt like all the trot work was pretty consistent. At the 5-star level, there's 3 judges. 2 of the judges had us on 70%, and there was one of the judges dinged us a bit, and they had us on a 67%. The competition we competed at had a new course designer, a guy called Pierre. I can't pronounce his second name, but he was the first time he's ever designed a 5-star, and he built a very challenging track. I think it was challenging just because a lot of the fences and the design that we'd never sort of seen before. You'll see later on the video, we actually parted company at the coffin. The coffin was a very tough fence with at the top element was like a hanging rail with a ditch underneath it, and unfortunately going out early, we didn't quite know how it was going to ride, and I sort of took it on, and unfortunately Luke had a bit of a spook at it, and I went flying over the top of him. So the dressage up until now is going quite well. One of the hardest movements in the dressage is the walk. Luke is just anticipating this canter transition, and unfortunately just there he had a big sneeze, which is usually his sign that he's about to explode because he's nervous. So unfortunately for that walk canter transition, we got a 5 or a 6. And then this first change is a late behind change. If you look at his hind legs, they change 1 stride after his front legs. It's a real bugger actually, because every flying change we'd done in training and in the preparation had been clean. And those 2 mistakes basically kept us out of the 20s. I sort of knew that this competition was going to be more decided on the cross country, so I wasn't too upset about getting a 31, even though our horse is very capable of getting into the 20s. The cross country, which you'll see in a moment, was a sort of a very long course. It was an 11-minute course, and there was quite a long sort of grueling hill towards the end of the course. The silver lining in our fall was it happened about halfway around the track, so at about 5 or 5.5 minutes is where we took a tumble. So sort of on the positive side of things is when we when we crashed and burned, it was sort of only halfway around the course. The reason I'm saying that is it would have been a real disaster if I would have fallen off like at 9 or 10 minutes course, because that's exactly when the horses start getting really, really tired and exhausted. So the good news for us is Luke will fight, live to fight another day, and then we basically went halfway around a 5-star course, which means that the chances of injury are very, very low. He looks like he's pulled up well, and we'll definitely have a horse for next season. My plan at the moment is to give him about a month holiday. He's had a very, very hard preparation. He's super fit, and all the training and the galloping and everything that we had to put into him leading up to the competition sort of puts a fair bit of wear and tear on his legs, and I feel like he's had a pretty big year now. He did 1.5 5-stars, and my goal would be to give him a month off here and then bring him back into work, middle or towards the end of November, and then probably build him up and try and head towards the Kentucky 5-star again. Luke will be 15 years old next year. I feel like I've got a real handle on his soundness now. Obviously we'd had a couple of injuries through his career, but he's quite seasoned now. The real bugger about this cross-country round is that we were having a very, very good trip. I feel like this is the best Luke had gone, like in the way that he was jumping his fences. He was sort of not charging them, making too much of a bit at the fences, and he was sort of jumping all the jumps well and out of stride. He can be a little bit spooky into water, so I was sort of glad to get through fence 3, which was a water jump, and then we had another water jump coming up in a minute or two. The footing was fantastic. Hats off to the organisers at Maryland 5-star, because it was like galloping on a racetrack there. The footing was absolutely brilliant. The first real challenging combination was in the main arena. Luke didn't jump over the first keyhole perfectly well. He sort of charged at it a bit, and then I had to really struggle to get him over part B. And then so I quickly took the long alternative to part C. Instead of continuing to the second keyhole, I was able to do an inside turn here and actually jump the alternative on the inside line. So I don't even think it took that much more time. We were able to do a nice easy turn from my arena eventing days and jump out over part C. When you're doing these 5-stars, you sort of measure the course at exactly where you should be at each minute marker. The average sort of speed is 570 meters per minute, and Luke was actually right on top of his minute markers. So the pace that we were going and the way that he was jumping the fences was, in my opinion, going to lead to a clear and under time round. It was a bit of a shame that I sort of went so early. The coffin, which you'll see in a minute, was the real bogey fence. On my second ride, Cabano 3, I decided to take the long way there. It really didn't jump well, even for the really, really seasoned, experienced horses. They all sort of clambered over it. It ended up being it was a long 2-stride or a very short 3-stride. You'll see it in a minute. That also, just what we went through, was quite a challenging combination, and Luke was fantastic through there. He's a really, really sort of game cross-country horse. And this was the second water fence. He sort of jumps them a little bit sticky, especially when there's hedge into water. So this next fence is basically little big fence there just to slow them down, and then I had to get him quite short for the coffin. Luke wanted to go, and I'm trying to hold him back. and he jumped up quite high at the ditch, and unfortunately we didn't quite get there in 2 strides. We sort of got 2 in a chip. Knowing what we know now, in hindsight, the long way, or the option, was not that long, and I wish I had my time over again and I could have taken the long route like a lot of the other horses. And it was just a weird looking jump, and Luke was unharmed, I was unharmed, but it was very disappointing just because I really felt like we had Luke in great shape. Anyway guys, we'll dust ourselves off, give him a good break, and gear ourselves up for the 2026 season, and Kentucky 5-star, here we come.